Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today's Monday. You guys already know what that means. We are back with another mock draft for today. Now, last week was a really big week in the NFL. It was free agency. A lot of moving pieces, a lot of new guys on new teams and everything like that. So this mock draft to me is going to be probably the most accurate one yet, because now we know what positions certain teams chose to address in free agency that they don't have to address in the draft, and vice versa. This is going to be one of the many very accurate mock drafts that you will see on this channel. If you guys have been enjoying the mock drafts, though, don't forget to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. We just hit 700, so thank you guys very, very much. I sincerely appreciate all of your support. But let's go ahead and get right into it and start the mock draft. So we're going to start off with Mr. Caleb Williams. I don't think that's any surprise. You know, the one sliver of hope that the Justin Fields cult had was that he hadn't gotten traded yet, and they were holding out that maybe they were going to get a haul for the first overall pick. That wasn't the case. It turned out they just weren't able to trade Justin Fields up until a few days ago. They wanted to do right by him, but they also wanted to get good value, and then it ended up with getting a conditional sixth from Pittsburgh, which to me is not what they should have gotten. They probably could have gotten a mid-round pick, but hey, what do I know? But that saga is over in Chicago. They possess the first overall pick. They are going to take Caleb Williams. I have never been more sure of it. Last week, I was 100% sure. This week, I am 110% sure. Getting into Washington, though, this is where I will deviate a little bit. Now, there have been reports, and pretty good ones, that Washington prefers Jayden Daniels over Drake Maye. Now, to me, that's kind of ridiculous, personally speaking. I think Drake Maye is a better quarterback all around. But I think some of the clues, like Cliff Kingsbury, and I think a big one was the signing of Marcus Mariota as their backup quarterback. Marcus Mariota was brought into Philadelphia to be the backup for Jalen Hurts, a very athletic, mobile quarterback. I think that is why he was brought into Washington, to be the backup for Jayden Daniels. I will have him going second overall to the Washington Commanders. Now, third overall for the Patriots. Some of those same reports actually say that the Patriots also prefer Jayden Daniels, and if he's not there at 3, they would trade down, which to me, again, you're getting gifted Drake Maye. I don't know why you wouldn't, run the card up to the stage to take him. But this is a prediction of what the teams would do. This is not what I would do. So, in this instance, I feel the Patriots would maybe hold off on quarterback, and they would take the best non-quarterback in this draft, and that would be Marvin Harrison Jr. Truthfully, I think that, they signed Jacoby Brissett. I don't think that he's an answer. He's a one-year kind of bridge guy. It makes sense that they draft a quarterback, but I think they could very well draft a quarterback at pick 35, right? Michael Penix might still be there. Bo Nix might still be there. I think that that's an option that they could be considering. And again, Marvin Harrison is just an absolute generational talent. I mean, they know it. His dad torched him for how many years. But getting into the Arizona Cardinals, again, there was a kind of a moment where you thought, oh, maybe the Cardinals aren't gonna take Marvin Harrison Jr. Maybe they need an offensive tackle if he's there. Maybe they're not gonna take a receiver. Maybe they need an offensive tackle because they sign an offensive lineman and everything like that, and then it was like, no, they're still taking receiver. They're very much still taking a receiver. They traded away Rondale Moore. Greg Dortch is probably their number one option at receiver right now, and that's not very good. No offense to Greg Dortch. So let's go ahead and give the Cardinals a receiver, and a receiver that I think is worth taking at pick 4, not named Marvin Harrison Jr., would also be Malik Nabers. I think that he would have a lot of explosive plays with Kyler Murray as his quarterback, and I think that would be very, very exciting for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, checking in at pick 5, and I'm gonna make a little asterisk here. I do not have PFF Plus. I'm not paying for it. I'm a broke college student. Sorry, right? So if I did, what I would do right now is I would package pick 5 in a trade down with the Minnesota Vikings. You would get pick 11, and they would get pick 23. Now, the Vikings this past week traded up into pick 23, and my guess is that they're definitely going to trade up in the draft somehow, some way. I kind of doubt they stick and pick at 11. I would bet they move up to one of these spots right here in the top 5, 6, 7 to get one of those quarterbacks. So what we are going to do is we are going to pretend that the Vikings are now on the board at pick 5 and that the Chargers now possess pick 11 and pick 23. I think that could get it done. I think that maybe, to move up 6 spots, you'd give up an additional first rounder. Maybe you throw in like a fifth or something. But I think that that's pretty close to getting it done. So again, for purposes of this mock draft, Vikings are at 5, Chargers are at 11, and Chargers are at 23. So the Vikings would see that Drake May did not go in the first 4 picks. I think that they would absolutely call the Chargers panicking, and the Chargers would be fine to move down and accumulate more assets. This pick would be Drake May for the Minnesota Vikings. I think Kevin O'Connell would be licking his chops to get Drake May in Minnesota. I think that he would be able to work wonders with him. I think that this would be a great fit. And again, now you're kind of in an arms race with the Bears, right? Because the Bears are owners of the first overall pick. They're going to get Caleb Williams. Jordan Love looked great last year for Green Bay. The Lions' offense was awesome, and they got Ben Johnson back. So you're really in an arms race right now in the NFC North. To get yourself a Drake May, I think, is in a really, really good spot for them. And I definitely think that the reason they got that extra first was to move up to 5. So that's what we're going to do there. For the New York Giants, I am still going to go with receiver here. They've addressed the offensive line in free agency, and that's what I was talking about. They had needs. They addressed the offensive line in free agency. In the draft, I think the clear and obvious choice here is to go with Rome Odunze. Now, the status of Darren Waller is still up in the air. If he retires, I think Brock Bowers is an option at pick 6. But I think for right now, it's Rome Odunze. I mean, he's phenomenal. We have 3 really, really, really good receivers in this draft. For the Tennessee Titans, this pick to me is kind of obvious. It's going to be Joe Alt. They still need help in their offensive line. They're not going to get one of the top 3 premium receivers in this big board. So they go with Joe Alt, a blue chip prospect at tackle. I think that could be really, really good for him. For the Atlanta Falcons, I do think they go defense. I am going to keep my pick from last week. I'm still going to go with Dallas Turner. I think he's the top defensive player off the board, and I think the Falcons are the first team to pick a defensive player. Now, for the Bears, this is where it gets interesting because I think if you're at 9 and you're saying, okay, well, Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors is on the board. Marvin Harrison, in no reality, would be on the board at pick 9. But if one of the other 2 guys are on the board, I think you sprint the pick up. But in this instance, where none of the top 3 receivers are there at pick 9, I could anticipate a trade down. I could because the Bears don't have a second-round pick from the Montez Sweat trade last year. I could also see them going with defense because, again, they're going to get their superstar quarterback at pick 1. So I would honestly say if they stick and pick at 9, given this current big board, I think Byron Murphy would be their pick. Now, he's a guy that's really high on a lot of people's draft boards. I personally probably am not as high on him as a lot of other people are. But I do recognize that he is a game disruptor at defensive tackle and that the Bears need defensive tackle, specifically the interior of their defensive line badly. Defensive tackle I think is always a very thin, at the draft. Like there's only a few guys per draft that are going to be difference makers, whereas you can find a receiver in the 5th round that's going to be, putting up 500, 600 yards, whatever. I mean, speaking of the last 2 teams, Darnell Mooney was that guy for the Bears, and then he just signed with the Falcons. So I do think that you can rank the order of operations here for a position and take a defensive lineman, specifically a defensive tackle for the Bears here at pick 9. For pick number 10, Brock Bowers is tempting. Do not get me wrong. And honestly, he's not a bad option now because, like I said, the Jets are going to go with an offensive lineman. I've been saying that forever. And they went out and they signed Morgan Moses and they signed Tyron Smith. That was, one of the big fishes on the free agent market. And I understand that he's old. So drafting a tackle here or drafting a, guard, swing guy, whatever, is still definitely in play. But I'm almost talking myself into taking Brock Bowers here because they don't have a viable tight end option. God, I don't know if I can do it though. I just don't know. I think I'm still take Talise Fuaga. He I think has guard versatility. Again, Morgan Moses is not a sure thing. Maybe he could play right tackle. Fuaga does have experience playing right tackle. I still think that's the pick there. Whatever, right? Now for pick 11. For the Minnesota Vikings. So, like I said, right, we're in a position where this is going to be the Chargers pick, not the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know why I said that. Chargers are on the board here. Brock Bowers is very tempting. I could see them going with Brock Bowers. Quinyon Mitchell, Nate Wiggins is also, I do think they need help at corner. It depends on kind of what your preference is. You like Cooper DeJean, you like Quinyon Mitchell, you like Nate Wiggins. Brock Bowers is another guy that's really interesting for me here, honestly, for the Chargers. And it's going to be hard for me to pass them up, given that those elite receivers are off the board. I do think they would go with receiver if there was one available, but they just need pass catchers bad. And I was watching a Brett Coleman video talking about prospects, and he basically was talking about how you shouldn't think of Brock Bowers as a tight end because he's more of an H back, right? He's not a great inline blocker. He's not a guy that you're going to leave, on one-on-one with like Micah Parsons, but he is a guy that is going to absolutely burn you in the receiving game. He's too big for DBs and he's too fast for linebackers. And having a guy like that in this offense that is really in desperate need of some pass catchers, I think is great. So for the Chargers, they're going to take Brock Bowers at pick 11. I think I'm pretty happy with that pick. At pick 12, the Broncos were arguably the only team that had a QB vacancy that didn't fill it in free agency or via the trade. I mean, the Steelers filled it twice, ironically enough. And I think that means that they're geared up to take one of these quarterbacks here. In my opinion, that's going to be J.J. McCarthy. Now, again, you can have your opinion on J.J. McCarthy, and that's totally fine. There's a wide array of J.J. McCarthy, analysis out there. But the fact of the matter is that I think that he is pretty consensus top 15 pick in this draft. The Broncos have a massive hole at quarterback, and Sean Payton is a quarterback guy. So taking a chance on a guy like J.J. McCarthy with some positive attributes, I think would be something that they do. The Raiders. So I believe in my last mock draft, I projected them with Murphy out of Texas, the defensive tackle, the one I had the Bears taking, right? But they signed Christian Wilkins. So this is a very good example of didn't know that last week. I know it this week. So they're not going to take defensive linemen this week. I'll tell you what. What they will take is corner. Now, I've mocked this guy to the Raiders before, and I think it just makes too much sense given their history, given their, I guess, morals. Nate Wiggins. He's big. He's got long arms. He's fast. He's kind of a freak. And the Raiders historically just love guys like that. They love guys that run super fast, are super tall, super long arms, whatever. They need corners badly. Again, they're going to try to make this defense much better. Their defensive line is solid. And, I think they're really banking on having a fucking awesome pass rush with some quality coverage on the back end. They're going to need to play good coverage going up against, Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes 4 times a year at least, and then whoever the Broncos draft. So I think Nate Wiggins is a good pick here for the Raiders. Number 14 here for the Saints, I still say that they got to go with BPA. They're still held hostage by their own cap situation. They weren't able to do much of free agency, which is understandable, but they got to go with best player available. I think that player might be Cooper DeJean, depending on, what you're thinking. I understand that they, gave Tyron Smith some more money. Cooper DeJean probably projects as a safety, but could also play corner. I think that this guy's going to be really good at the next level. Again, they probably just got to go best player available. For the Colts, I would think about going receiver here because Michael Pittman is probably your only viable option. But with Michael Pittman coming back and with no good receivers being on the board here, I think that they probably go defense. I still think they need help in the defensive backfield. I know they re-signed Kenny Moore, but I'm going to go ahead and take Quinyon Mitchell for them to get that defense better. Again, you really want somebody for Anthony Richardson right here, but you got to play the board here. You can't overreach. I personally would really try to trade down a few picks and take Adonai Mitchell. Do I think that's realistic? Probably not, but it's something I would do and I would consider if I was Chris Ballard. For the Seattle Seahawks, my Seattle Seahawks, in fact, I think their biggest need is the same as it was last week. They still need help with the interior of their offensive line. Damian Lewis went out and got $53 million. The Seahawks are never going to match that, and I don't blame them because he is ass. But that doesn't change the fact that they still need help on the interior of the offensive line. Jackson Powers Johnson is going to be my pick here still. He could play center. He could play guard. You got Olu that coming out as a center last year from Michigan for the Seahawks. He could play center. You can put Jackson Powers Johnson at guard. You can move those guys around a little bit, but the fact of the matter is that you need interior offensive linemen, and I think he is the best interior offensive lineman available. You could also argue Troy Fattanu, move him into guard. I wouldn't hate that either, but again, I think interior offensive line is such a position of need here, and it's again not very. It's kind of thin in the draft, so you got to get them when they're on board. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, now, I think they've had a weird free agency. They've made a few good moves, like Mitch Morse I thought was a good move, but they've made some really questionable calls. I mean, Gabe Davis, $39 million? Are we smoking drugs right now? Don't know what the hell that was about, but they do need help on their offensive line, similar to the Seahawks in the interior. I will go with Troy Fattanu. The offense was disappointing last year, and Trevor Lawrence, I don't want to say he's trash, but he hasn't taken that you know, the step because Trevor Lawrence, he was supposed to be the Lisan Al Gaib, right? I mean, he was supposed to be the Messiah for the Jaguars, and he hasn't been. And it's not to say he's been bad, but he hasn't been as good as he possibly could be. Get him some more offensive linemen, get him better protection, allow him to, scan the field more, and hopefully Troy Fattanu could also open up some lanes for Travis Etienne because he averaged a cool 3.7 yards per carry last year. So let's get those numbers up. Let's get the Lisan Al Gaib some help. Let's go to number 18 with the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, I kind of think that they want to go with defensive linemen here. I would be very intrigued about Jared Verse. However, I cannot deny that Olu Fashanu, the opportunity to take him at pick 18 is too tantalizing to pass up. They would not pass up Olu Fashanu if he was there at pick 18. You could be getting a franchise left tackle with the 18th overall pick, and God knows the Bengals have needed help for Joe Burrow for years now. Ever since his rookie year, they've struggled to protect him. Olu Fashanu would hopefully solve that problem for them. Now, Los Angeles Rams. This is another very important thing that I did not know last week. Aaron Donald has retired. God is good. Aaron Donald is retired. And now they're in a position where their defensive line is pretty weak. Aaron Donald was that glue, and he was very strong glue, holding that defensive line together and making them a good unit, cohesive unit. But they don't have that glue anymore. So what do? Well, Jerzon Newton is a damn good defensive lineman in his own right. Not to the caliber of Aaron Donald. I hope, I pray. But I think if he's on the board here at pick 19, the Rams would take him. They would fill their current biggest need on their team. And again, it sucks that Aaron Donald retired, and you really were hoping to build on what you did last year, but now you kind of got to fill in the gap a little bit at pick 19, and I think you go with the defensive lineman right there. At pick 20, the Steelers, now owners of both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, two of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL, so maybe I'll be a Yinzer this year. But I think corner is probably still the move. You can argue one way or the other. They are also thin at receiver, so Brian Thomas honestly wouldn't be the worst option. Adonai Mitchell wouldn't be either. But if we're being honest, I'm actually thinking Brian Thomas here just because of his ability to stretch the field and make big plays. I think you want to have a complementary piece to what George Pickens is, which is more of like a jump ball, kind of excellent hands receiver. And don't get me wrong, he's able to make a lot of big plays as well. But I think you want big targets, fast targets for Justin Fields, who hasn't been the most accurate quarterback. I mean, let's be real. What is he? He's 6'4", 205, right? That is a big target. He is fast. He's able to make big plays. I think you want to make life as easy as possible for Justin Fields, who I do believe will be the starter for the significant portion of the year. The Miami Dolphins. Unfortunately, both of the good defensive tackles are off the board in the first round, so they can't replace Christian Wilkins just yet. But they are out some offensive. They had a lot of guys leave, so they are pretty much filling everywhere, filling every spot. Jared Verse would be tempting, although I do still like the duo of Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. I'm gonna go with a surprise pick here. I'm actually gonna go with Amaris Mims. Hear me out. Teron Armstead is getting older, right? And he's getting more injury prone. He's kind of more fragile. And you want a guy that's really gonna be able to protect Tua because Tua is he's not an evasive guy. He's not a guy that's gonna go make shit happen. And if the pocket collapses on Tua, yeah. So Amaris Mims to me is such a freak, and I mean that in the most respectful way possible. A freak at left tackle or right tackle, wherever you want to play him. I understand Austin Jackson is really good, but this is more of a Teron Armstead replacement. Again, if Jerzon Newton's on the board, if Byron Murphy's on the board, you take them. But I think this fills a not immediate hole, but a potential hole for the Dolphins here at tackle. Number 22, the Philadelphia Eagles. They also made a lot of big moves. Saquon Barkley is a Eagle. Kenny Pickett, let's go, QB1. But no, they're going to still take a corner. Listen, I understand that some of you guys have been dismissive of my take to take a corner for the Eagles, and I don't know that I understand it, to be honest. James Bradbury is garbage. Darius Slay's pretty good, but he's like 32. Kelly Ringo was a rookie fourth rounder. Josh Jacobs sucks. What do you want from me? Like, they're going to take a corner. I don't know what to tell you. Back with the Chargers here at pick 23. And I would, again, this would be a perfect spot to take one of these edge rushers, either Jared Verse or Latu. But they retained both Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. Kind of surprised about it, not going to lie. They also would be looking to fill the role at receiver. And truthfully, if you're sitting at 23 and you're the Los Angeles Chargers, you just released Mike Williams, you just traded away Keenan Allen, Adonai Mitchell is a perfect replacement to be your wide receiver one to pair with Justin Jefferson. Now I know, yeah, like they doubled up on offense, they need help on defense. I get it, but when you have Justin Herbert, man, I mean, I think you want to just build the Avengers around him. I mean, this guy is truly. He can assemble all of the Infinity Stones and snap his fingers, and the Chargers might actually be something for once. So this, I know it's really offensive aggressive, but just hear me out. I think that would be a perfect first round for the Chargers. That would be fucking awesome. Okay. Dallas Cowboys. Listen, tackle is now a need, right? With Tyron Smith leaving, I understand that they're gonna have some guys to move around there, and Tyler Smith. I get it. So it's maybe not as immediate of a need as some of these other guys. Linebacker with Leighton Vander Esch getting cut / retiring. I don't really know which one. That could be an issue as well. But I think if you're the Cowboys here at pick 24, Jared Verse is sliding down this board. Obviously Micah Parsons is amazing, but DeMarcus Lawrence is getting older. I believe he's like 33, 32. He's not going to be in the peak of his powers for long. And listen, there are a few things that would be scarier than Micah Parsons and Jared Verse on opposite sides of each other. I really do think that would be a fantastic duo. And again, you're going to have to rush the passer, right? You're going to have to go against Jalen Hurts. You're going to have to go against, Drake May or Jane Daniels. You're going to have to go against Daniel Jones. Never mind. But in all seriousness, I feel like the only thing better than one dominant pass rusher is two dominant pass rushers. So go get them, Cowboys. Packers, I've had them taking Tyler Nubin, safety out of Minnesota. Now I think that they're way more flexible because they addressed the safety position in free agency. They got Xavier McKinney. So now I think that opens them up to take almost best player available. I think in this instance that would be Latu out of UCLA. Get them some more young pass rushers. That defense was not very good last year. Joe Barry can be blamed for some of it, Packers fans, I understand, but they need some more help on that defensive line. They need better personnel, especially, I think. 26, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Listen, you're basically running it back with the same team as last year. You got Baker back. You got Mike Evans back. You got Antoine Winfield back on the franchise tag. What are you going to do? I think J.C. Latham is tempting, even though I think you need more interior offensive line. And the problem is that Tristan Wirfs plays right tackle. J.C. Latham would have to move to left. Whatever. Graham Barton, to me, is a guy that's probably a better fit here for their interior of their offensive line, because I do think they need help at guard and center. Center specifically because Ryan Jensen has retired. So that's going to be a need they need to fill there. At 27, the Arizona Cardinals, then I do think would go defense because they did address some offensive line in free agency. They got Jonah Williams, I believe. So this is a spot where I think, we need some help at corner. And in my opinion, the best corner still on the board would be Kool-Aid McKinstry, a guy that I think Jonathan Gannon would really like. For Buffalo at pick 28, I can see them going receiver. I really can. Stephon Diggs, I don't want to say he's washed or that he's trashed. He's not, but there's some rumblings, and with Stephon Diggs, there's always been, right? But he's not getting younger. You don't have a number 2 receiver at this point. It would be like Khalil Shakir, I believe. So that would be a little sketch. Don't get me wrong. But I would go with the receiver here. Let's check who's available. I know Ladd McConkey would still be on the board. I don't know if I love Ladd McConkey, but honestly, I think maybe a guy like Keon Coleman would be just tantalizing enough to take. High risk, high reward type of guy at 28, but a guy that I think if you pair with Josh Allen could be really, really good. Detroit Lions, they are out a guard now with Jonah Jackson leaving in free agency, unfortunately, to the Rams, who have really beefed up their interior of their offensive line. Holy shit, right? Corner is a position they still need to address, in my opinion, but they made the trade for Carlton Davis, so I think that they can afford to not go corner in the first round at this point. I will go ahead and give them Zach Frazier. I think he can play guard. I think that he can fill the void at Jonah Jackson. And again, I think that Ben Johnson's scheme in Detroit is heavily reliant on good offensive line play. Good opening up holes in the running game and keeping Jared Goff protected, because Jared Goff is not a guy that's going to create space and everything like that. Going offensive line there to me makes a lot of sense. Bump him out to guard. You'll be fine. For the Ravens, Tyler Guyton to me makes sense. J.C. Latham to me makes sense. I think J.C. Latham makes the most sense because he did play right tackle and they did lose Morgan Moses. Now I understand that they're going to have opportunities for some other guys, but I think J.C. Latham is too talented of a guy to pass up at 30 when you have a hole at offensive tackle, in my opinion. For the 49ers, I think they're also going to go with an offensive lineman. Tyler Guyton, to me, would be the best one still available. I don't think, who's their right tackle? Was it McKivitz? He sucks. Trent Williams is still good. You got to protect Brock Purdy. Pretty simple. And then for the Kansas City Chiefs, they might still go with receiver, honestly. I know they filled the void with Marquise Brown. But Ladd McConkey to me would be a nice addition as well, more of a long-term addition. So this is my mock draft. If it'll load, this is my mock draft. I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.